Well, now to the crisis in Sudan, and a fragile 72-hour ceasefire appears to be holding there despite some claims of violations. It's allowing more countries to carry out evacuation flights for their citizens. This is one of the airlifts. A military plane arrived in Greece earlier today with 17 people on board. Thousands of foreign nationals have now been flown out by their governments or fled Sudan via land or sea. Well, we are going to hear more this morning on all of this, including from the federal government's efforts to get Canadians out of Sudan. The CBC's Karina Roman joins me now live from Ottawa. Karina, the Prime Minister, the Foreign Affairs Minister, they spoke to reporters about the situation in Sudan not too long ago. What did they say?
Well, we now have some numbers in terms of putting a sense of the scale of what they're facing. 1,700 Canadians have registered with Global Affairs Canada. That's just the people who have registered. There is very likely more Canadians there. All have been contacted by Global Affairs. 550 have asked for assistance and 100 have left Sudan. But some are leaving on their own. I mean, there is, of course, people just trying to take it into their own hands and get out by themselves, either by land or sea. But there are lots of questions as to why Canada does not seem to be as active in terms of evacuation as other countries. In fact, we've been relying on other countries to help evacuate our own citizens. Germany, France, Saudi Arabia, UAE, all getting thanks today from the Canadian government, from the cabinet ministers that you mentioned, for helping our citizens get out. Although we don't actually have a number of how many Canadians were on their planes or in terms of Saudi Arabia's on their boat. So the Prime Minister, of course, was asked this question this morning, sort of what is taking Canada so long to get in there? Here's what he had to say.
There's no delay. Obviously, it's an extremely difficult situation. We've had resources in the region for many days now. We're coordinating with our allies. There's very limited places where those airlifts can happen from. There's discussions around with the different countries on who gets to land when, who gets to do the airlift work quickly.
And it is a matter of speed. Whoever can do it more quickly is who gets precedence, obviously. But you heard that language. They are coordinated with allies rather than dependent on allies. That's how they're framing it right now. Mélanie Joly, the Foreign Affairs Minister, she says they've negotiated safe passage with many countries. So that's where a lot of their work is done, phone calls and conversations with leaders of neighboring countries. Kenya, Egypt, Ethiopia have all been involved in that in terms of helping with safe passage for our citizens. Mélanie Joly saying, it is a very, very dangerous situation. Have a listen to what she had to say.
We know that the situation is extremely difficult, and until the ceasefire that happened last night, well, Khartoum was one of the most dangerous places in the world. 70% of hospitals are not working. Streets are extremely unsafe, and so that makes it a very volatile environment.
Now, she reinforced the importance of people registering with Global Affairs. Obviously, it's hard right now because communications we hear are down. It's not like the internet is working everywhere or even cell phones, but to maybe have family members who are not in the country register people who are still in the country so that Global Affairs Canada can know about them. And she also pointed out that that includes dual nationals and, that just because you have more than one nationality, if you're a Canadian citizen is a Canadian citizen. And so they're really encouraging people because they do believe that number I gave you, 1,700, is not the extent of numbers of Canadians who are there who will probably need help.
Yeah, there could be more who simply have not registered with Global Affairs. Karina, this is something we expect to continue to come up, including in the House of Commons later today. What can you tell us about that?
Well, there is set to be an emergency debate on the issue this evening in the House of Commons where MPs can give their thoughts, their suggestions, their concerns, and talk about it. It is a rapidly evolving situation. So by the time this emergency debate happens, there might even be new information that will be needing to be revealed and debated. The debate, I should mention, was requested by Conservative MP Garnet Jennis, and obviously all parties want part of that. So, it got consent for that to go ahead. And so we will obviously hear more about that this evening.
All right, the CBC's Karina Roman in Ottawa.